Okay, well, today is a little bit of a cooler day. Currently mid-April here, just under 50 degrees. Last weekend was a little bit nicer. My friend Roxanne and I went through and we cleaned up some of the hives. So this is predominantly what I call hive number one. The little number one up there. Hive number one last year was taken over by yellow jackets. So it had been completely closed up, so there's no way for anything to get in there. Last weekend, Roxanne and I went through and we cleaned up the hive. There's, little particulates of our mess still about. From just scraping out the hives into the buckets because there were dead yellow jackets in there. I just fed back some of the frames that were partially chewed up that had honey on them. I kind of fed those out because there were some scout bees out, so we got them fed for that. And then hive number two has kind of always been a little bit of my top performer. It's been always like the better one for me. This is the one that I had wrapped up last winter with all of the hive hugger. So we had a kind of a foil pack that went around it, and then we had these hive huggers, which are basically like insulated puzzle pieces. They kind of just like fit together, and we put that all the way around this. This was sealed up. This was winterized. This was rated for at least 30 below, and there were bees in there when I wrapped them up. There were a good amount of bees in there when I wrapped it up. Sometime between when I wrapped it and when I went to unwrap it, just about a month back, when we had some 70-degree weather, I was checking on the bees and I found that there were dead bees in this hive. There was nothing in there. Actually, there was a lot of nothing in there. So out of discouragement, I just kind of closed everything back up. Couldn't see any signs of life at all. So I closed this hive back up and got this one ready to go, thinking, okay, well, they didn't overwinter. They got too cold. I mean, we did have, it is northern Montana. We get a lot of that negative 40-degree temperature, so I just assumed that everything had died off in there. There weren't a lot of bees, so thankfully my little beekeeper friend came out and she went and looked through the hive, and she's like, no, she goes, the fact that there's no bees in here tells me that they left the hive for some reason, which is completely odd because in this hive, I have it set up for 3 right now. So in this hive, generally speaking, your queen, your brood, and all of their immediate supplements, honey and pollen, will go in this bottom box. You leave them a couple extra frames for broods and things like that. This next box had primarily honey. So if they ate through all of the honey from this box and this box, this third box contains sugar. Sugar is just a great carbohydrate for them. It overwinters well. None of the honey was, none of the sugar was touched. I still had 10 pounds of sugar up here. Almost all of the honey was still capped off in here. And there was no signs of life down below. There was a small cluster of bees that had frozen together up here. Oh gosh, I'd say maybe 20 bees were huddled together, and there were probably 30 to 40 bees down below in the bottom frame here that were dead. So that kind of just tells me that for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, hive was insulated, was doing well, had plenty of resources. This hive was treated for mites, so this hive was very, very healthy. I'm not really sure why. That's called absconding, I believe, when they just they leave their hive with the queen. Couldn't find the dead queen in there, couldn't find anything. So The queen and a bunch of her worker bees decided for whatever reason this was not an ideal situation for them, and they left. So not sure what happens or why that is. Nobody really understands the thought behind that. Checked the hive really good. There were no signs of mold, mildew, anything like that really. There were no mites in the bottom board when we went to go look at it. So this one we kind of took some of the frames out of, because this one was basically, this was a full great active hive before the yellow jackets took it over. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to go through and see how much honey I could press out of that one for feeding back to the bees, and got quite a bit. This one still had tons and tons of capped honey. So you know what? I took some of it back. So I'm actually in the process right now of processing some of the honey that was capped off from this one. I also had a surplus of frames last year that were capped honey from early spring that I didn't process, because I had anticipated I was going to need to feed the bees after they overwintered and they would need more supply. So I was going to take out whatever empty frames ended up being in here after the winter and feed them the frames that I had saved for them. I actually froze them so the honey would, you know, I didn't have to worry about rodents or anything like that smelling honey anywhere in my property or my house. So put that in the freezer, and yeah, so that's what I'm processing today, is pretty much a lot of the honey that was in this frame, or in this hive. So I'll have a little bit of my first year honey again. I know a lot of people were saying that that was some of the best honey they had, so really appreciate that. And I'm just love all of the support everybody gives me and all the questions I get. This is not an easy hobby. This is not a cheap hobby by any means. It is just kind of a passion. You know, it's something that I've always been, always loved bees, always curious about bees, and wanted to make a difference, you know, in the bees ecology and keeping bees on my property. Right now we're going to have about 8 trees that we're going to be planting. Not today because it's still a little bit windy, still a little bit too cool. And we're still actually getting cold snaps, and we're still even getting a little bit of snow. So just today, just because, you know, I told you that we had problems with yellow jackets before, so I just put up my yellow jacket traps a little bit away from the hive. I'm not really looking at trying to attract anything over to the hive, so I've got a couple of them. Got one out in this tree over here, and I've got one in one of my trees over here. But yeah, we're going to be planting some new trees this spring. The majority of all of our little trees that we had on the property, I've got about 5 of them here. They go all the way back. I've got 5 pines that are kind of just dead standing. I don't know if they just got too cold or what. I mean, there's a tiniest bit of a little bit of green on some of them, but for the majority of these are dead. So we got some trees at Home Depot, and we're probably going to end up planting them maybe in between. I'm going to leave these just a little bit to see if these green back up at all. But we'll probably plant them in between all of our dead pines in here. Our ultimate goal is to get rid of all of these Russian olives. I don't know if you guys know what Russian olives are, but they are stickery, thorn, barren trees that are actually kind of considered more of a weed. So that's unfortunate, and these do actually have disease and they do die off. For whatever reason, the bees really do like it. I don't know if their sap is exceptionally tasty, but yeah, so there's that. So we're going to be putting in, gosh, I've got 2 apple trees, 2 crab apple trees, I think. And then I think I've got just some basic maple trees, and I think there were maybe even some aspens in there. We might put some of those aspens toward the back because I know they like to throw runners and stickers and everything else, or so I'm just upshoots from the tree. So I don't really care if those trees are in the back lot and they throw a bunch of suckers out because I don't need to trim them. This is a windrow. I need a good windrow. That's essentially why I have my structure around my bee yard, because the wind blows in from this direction, and you know, bees are resilient and they do manage pretty well out in the wild, but you know, any little extra help that you can give them to keep the wind blowing on them, off of them, which is also why I have on the bottoms, thanks to my beekeeper friend Roxanne. She did recommend putting in that dense foam in there as well, just because having any woodenware on top of cinder block is usually not good. So I've got a nice thick piece of, you know, insulation in between the cold concrete cinder block and my hive. So that's about it for me. I'm just checking on stuff in the bee yard, just getting things ready to go. Like I said, I was processing honey today, so maybe I'll just show a little clip of that at the end of this and just kind of see what I got out from just some scrap frames of honey that were left in that hive. So, all right, everybody, that's it for now. Hope everybody is having a good spring. I know next weekend is Easter, so we're getting closer to getting ready to load these up with bees. That's going to be another expense. Like I said, the bees are not cheap. This hobby, you know, my bees are going to cost me $200 a pop. So $200 for that colony and that one. So unless I can catch a wild hive out there, that's kind of what I'm looking at as far as just getting these things started again. So this first year's been really expensive and I've learned a lot, and now going into my second year of beekeeping, I'm hoping to have a lot more confidence going into this, a lot more knowledge, you know, just things I can pass down to other beekeepers, because I feel like we're kind of a dying breed. It's really discouraging when your bees die off and you're left with nothing. So, but it's important to keep this up. Bees are, if we lost bees, we would basically run out of food crops in North America probably within 3 to 5 months. So we need our bees around and we need beekeepers to keep them. So anybody else interested or ever want to come out to the bee yard to just experience this and see what this is all about, and just practice on somebody else's hives, I welcome you. You can contact me and I'll throw a suit on you and we'll keep you safe, and you can learn all about bees. So anyway, that's it for today. It's a little cold out here. Don't mean to keep sniffling out here, but this wind is kicking up and I am ready to go inside where it's a little bit warmer. So until next time, be happy. Bye. So here are our trees that we're going to be planting out there. So we've got quite a few. Quaking aspen. I've got, let's see, what is this one? An October glory. A choke cherry. I've got an apple here. I've got 2 apples actually. One here and another one somewhere else over there. Can't look at these. These are already starting to blossom. So it would be very dangerous if we were to put them out. Sorry, my husband's got some music going in the background here. But these are a 4-pack Fuji, Granny Smith. I think there's a Honey Crisp and there's another type on here. And then last but not least, I have this cool little. I don't know why I've always wanted one of these goofy little trees, but it's kind of whimsical and I love it. So anyway, that's it.